Hello and welcome back to our live stream series here on drawing Spider-Gwen. This is Inkpot and I am Grant Smith, and we are going to continue on with where we were at from last time. So I have made some minor changes here. Let me let's go to a more of a close-up here just for this part. So first thing you'll notice is I rounded off the foot a little bit. I didn't find that the pointed toe, kind of like Spider-Man look, really worked as much, considering these are supposed to be like ballet shoes. And another thing you'll notice is that before I had kind of the brow of the other side poking through on the face here, and I was just finding that it didn't really work. It just made it look odd. It was an odd angle. And another little bits that I've done is I pushed these shapes of the foot even a little bit further, and this is what I came up with. So I smoothed out the transition here. I gave kind of a seam line of the bottom of the shoe, and I gave it a little bit highlight, and I gave it some strapping that went up the calf a little bit. And I did the same thing over here and in here. I also did a little bit of work on the face here, and basically I brightened up the lips here. I just added a little highlight and stuff to the eye there, and I changed the nose quite a bit. So that's the original nose, and that's what I came up with. I also made the hair come down a little bit further on the face there. Okay, so that's about all the little bit of changes I did. If you have any questions about that, just feel free to ask about it, and I'm just going to keep on working here. And I'm just going to merge that layer with the layer below, and there we go. And let's grab my paintbrush tool. I'm just going to grab this. So I think the band in the hair is going to be that same green, just to tie it back into the rest of the piece here. So let's just go. I have a selection. Oh, I must add a selection. There we go. Things to check when you're drawing something digitally and nothing's showing up. Check if you have some area selected. Second thing, if that didn't fix it, then check if you're on the right layer. Then after that, it becomes a lot more difficult to troubleshoot. I'm also going to grab kind of this tone in here. I'm going to start with dark, just adding a little bit of the darker tones to the hair here, and let me just grab a better brush. Okay, so this brush, it goes from kind of wide to thin, but it also uses it's a dual, seems like it's a dual color brush, but I'm just putting both in the color picker. I'm just picking that the background and the foreground color are the same. It's just going to help with it's going to help the it's going to help me be able to do it in just the single color here. That's all I need. I don't need it to be two different colors. I'm just kind of doing this because this is where we are going to have the kind of a little part going on there. I'm just going to take the original drawing, place it over top again, just so I have kind of a better guideline of where I'm going to put that stuff. So this, let me just Control Z some of this, because the hairline actually should start a little bit lower. Just turn that back on. And turn it off here. Oh. Sorry, was drawing on the wrong layer there, so. Alright. That gives me a better idea of where that part was actually happening. This kind of brush gives a real nice, makes it a lot easier to get kind of that hair texture. And you just kind of want to keep layering it on. I'm just gonna add a little bit more there, and the areas that are gonna be darker, just make sure I go over that more. Yeah, so just kind of defining kind of where these lines are starting, where they're going to end up. Alright, now we'll go the brighter color, this blonder tone. I'm just going to have fairly light blonde hair, so it's kind of going to probably be more of a mid-tone. It's going to go more to like a white. I can probably get rid of that now, that layer. Now something I have to watch when I'm doing this is often I will kind of I'll kind of go too straight in my lines and keep them nice and curved and along the shape of the hair. We'll go in there and do harder highlights as well. So we're just kind of adding in all this nice soft kind of stuff. The reason why we did the mid-tone and the brown in that is just we want to really kind of add some depth to the layers of the hair. Another way you can kind of do this is if you wanted to, you can kind of block it all out, kind of like a more smooth first, and then kind of go in there with some highlights and some highlights and some shade. What that'll do is just kind of give you a little bit more of a smooth kind of shape first of where the lighting on the hair should hit. I just feel that then you're kind of doing 2 steps instead of 1. Now I used a photo reference. I just Googled some hairdos, and this is kind of what I thought was the neatest for her. I'm just gonna grab some of the. Now, I did make a blender brush in here as well, but I don't think I'll probably be using that all too much for this. And I'm just going to smooth some of it out as I it's in the certain sections there, just adding kind of the highlight. Kind of need to lighten up everything a little bit, so I'm just going over kind of everything here. I'm trying to not ruin that depth I've created with the dark colors first. I'll probably have to go in and redo that a little bit, so I'm just gonna go over a little bit. This is kind of making my strokes kind of abruptly end, which I don't need to do there. Just grab this lighter color in, or try to get some of that highlight going in there. I'm just gonna kind of indicate that there's kind of a piece of hair coming off there that's just turning this back on just so I can see a little bit better where these highlighted shapes are going to be. Turn that back off. Let's grab that darker tone. Alright, I'm going to smooth this out just a little bit. This is a brush that that I made. I basically took the gouache blender and I used a different brush shape. And what that did was that I can just get more for like, it works really good for hair and stuff, where I can push and pull the strands around a little bit of the hair and the tones. So it does kind of the same kind of job as the blender, but I'm allowed to, I can kind of drag and push around the colors that I've already laid down. I can mold them kind of to more where I need them to be. And it's just kind of smoothing everything out there. So yeah, I need dark kind of in that area, but I need this to extend further. So just pushing stuff around. It's going to soften that too a little bit, which isn't a bad thing because I'm going to go in there with highlights after and possibly darken some of the shaded areas a little bit, but hoping to kind of avoid that step by with what I'm doing here. It kind of helps define these shapes a little bit better for sure. Let me just grab a different brush here, and I'm just going to grab that highlight. This is kind of a different strand here. So I'll go back to my blender. Like I said, I'm kind of, blending tools are kind of growing on me in this. First I wasn't a big fan just because I hadn't used them a lot. Didn't like them, the ones that they had in Photoshop very much. But I do find these ones work really nice. Just find them way more user-friendly. And they kind of react the way I would like them to, and just keeping the texture in there too, which is nice. I'll still use this kind of technique in Photoshop as well. With that, you kind of use the smudge brush, does the same thing. I'm just finding I like this one a little bit better so far. So you can already see like the areas over here that I've done looking a lot better than what I've done in here. So basically the color that you basically want to kind of drag or stretch the area, that you kind of just start on that area and then just drag out from that. So if you want to pull a highlight, make the highlight last a little longer, you start on the highlight. If you want the shaded part to come through a little bit more, you start on that and then you pull that into the lighter parts. So it's just like pushing around paint on an actual wet canvas. I don't know if I would use this technique on something like dense fur or something. Might work. I haven't done much artwork of animals, so maybe that's something I'll have to work on one of these ones, because I don't have a lot of experience with that. Okay, so now I'm just taking a harder brush again, just to define some of these shapes a little bit better. I can always go back in and soften them with that blender. pull some of these highlights out further. Now right now these are kind of going to like a light point. They should probably be going lighter, as the light should be more affecting the light areas there than the dark. So just adding some highlight there. Now there's just this part's looking a little bit digital, so I'm just gonna go in and throw in a few more of those kind of hairs. I'll probably also go in with the eraser tool and fix up some of this. We'll probably just go and throw some just gonna grab this and make that more solid again. Just grab in some of those shaded colors. That really depends on what kind of look you're going for, but you can really, some people almost do it every strand and try to get that real crazy realism going on in there. Like I said before, that's not really my thing. I just want to give the impression. If you can give the impression with less, doing less, that's usually better, in my opinion. That's why some people can do the hair with like minimal work with just a single brush, kind of the way that I was doing it, but can get kind of a same like finished look, and I'm not exactly sure how they do it. It's just a lot of practice, a lot of working on hair. So it's speed usually comes from. And if you see a person who's a really quick artist, it's just putting the reps in that they can do it that quick. It's like me and my like kind of preliminary sketches. I'm really quick compared to a lot of people. And that's just from a lifetime of drawing. Like I said before, you kind of just develop shorthands for stuff. And that'll make everything quicker. So just parts where I think the light's going to hit it more. So I'm just putting those highlights in. Let's get some more of these kind of shadowed areas here. Now that it looked a little too mechanical there. So let me just, I want to darken that area, but I kind of want to I want to darken that area, but it was way too mechanical just putting in the lines there, so I'm just going in there with something that will affect more of the area, so I don't have a bunch of repeated singular lines in there. That'll help with that. Alright, so already that's looking a lot better. And we'll still have to probably go in there and smooth and push stuff around. Also, like, obviously this will cast shadow on the face a little bit, so we'll have to go in there and do that. But see, this is really coming together pretty quickly, thankfully. And there's some spots there that I just want to grab that blender tool again and just soften up and fix. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here with the softer brush. Or one of the next things I'm going to do. Let's go in there with the softer brush and really add some more just illumination to this area. I'm going to select it first. I'm going to grab a soft, really soft brush here, and I'm just in certain areas softening up areas. And then I'll deselect there. Now I'm going to take that same white that we were using in the highlight, kind of the rim highlight here. And I'm going to start incorporating some of that in spots. Now this I am just going to put down really hard with a real hard brush. By hard, we mean that it has no soft edges. And just kind of add where the sheen is going to be on the hair. So what you'll notice is you'll have these areas kind of sheen that come through where it's got really bright highlight on hair. So I'm just gonna put those areas kind of in here. Now those I kind of just scribble them in. So instead of having like where you follow like a whole highlighted strand, you're kind of just highlighting little areas here. And then I will go back in again with a soft brush. I'll decrease the size here. And I just want to show that those are going to have a little bit of a glow from the shimmer that's on them, a sheen. All right. Now I'm just going to go in here with a hard brush again and kind of just get those areas where it needs to be more in just highlight in there. where the directional lighting would be hitting it. So where you can kind of throw in some wayward kind of hairs. They can be in highlight too. Because they're just a single, can be just like up to a single strand. So they tend to have the lighter bits. These kind of hairs that are just coming off there. And on the other side, just go back in with my secondary rim light from the other side there. Just work that stuff in. Helps me clean up the shape of everything there too. And once we start putting in the background, it's going to help pull some of that out from the background too. Okay, so I'm just going to take the darker tone here. I'm going to take a fairly hard brush here. And I'm just going to add that there so that looks more like it's. Add some here. Just so it looks like that's actually coming off the face. Let's see. So I like that, but it's kind of looking flat a little bit still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to control select that layer that I was on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a larger brush. I'm going to take a larger soft brush again. I'm just going to grab some of the mid-tone here. And I'm just going to do that on a multiply layer. Oops. I'm not sure why. Okay. Oh, I turned both layers to multiply. Okay, so this multiply layer, and I'm just going to take down and add some depth to certain areas there. It's just darkening certain spots, and I'm going to do the opposite here. I'm going to add some little bit of tone to the hair there. Okay, so that's looking. I'm still not 100% happy with these. I feel like they're almost too saturated or something. I'm not exactly sure what is bothering me about them. Also, this strap here looks like it's a little flat. It should probably be more rounded, but for right now I'm just going to leave that. And we'll start working on the background, I think. But let's just get some highlights to the band in her hair first. Now, let's just grab a proper brush. It's another thing if you go to paint and nothing's there, nothing seems like nothing showing up with your brush. It could also be that you're using a blender tool instead of a paintbrush. Just grabbing the lighter colors from there. Oh, it's going to probably be like a hard plastic one. So I'm just kind of grabbing that. Just grab like a little highlight there. Alright, so that looks not bad. And yeah, now we'll start working on the backdrop. Now, one thing I used to do a lot is I would just mask out everything and then fill it, mask it out, fill it, mask it out, fill it. I'm not going to do that with this one. Because now I'm finding I prefer to just kind of I found it was just too cut out in spots, and it was really hard where I was getting that layered effect where even though they were on the same layer, where I felt like it was all kind of similar. Now what I did there is you just click a spot, hold shift and click again, and that will fill or make a line from the first point to the second point you press. And if I've found out, you can just keep doing that, keep holding shift, and we'll keep going from that last point. I'm just trying to get some nice textured kind of beginning here. Oh, you're doing that too close to the edge there, it can pop out. And then I'm actually going to go with a lighter tone in here. And oops. I just want to start building that up. Now this is a problem where it's making it look rounded. And that's why I often used would use masks to get these nice lines, but then you get this really hard edge, and I'd have to go in and like highlight all of them for it to kind of look proper, and I wasn't a fan of that look, so that's why now working it this kind of way. If I turn that off, so we got a nice kind of shape there. I'm just gonna grab kind of our darkest point there, because that's really going to be where our kind of our guiding star for what the general darkness of the piece is going to be. You know what? I'm going to Control Z. I'm just going to change the backdrop here and fill this area completely with a darker color. Oh, with a darker color. With our darkest point of shade. Yeah, that'll help. Oops. And you know what? I'm gonna move this stuff to a different layer. So if you ever do it on the wrong layer, you can always take it, copy it, paste it, go back to your original layer, hit the delete button, and now you have it on a separate layer. Now I think that's looking a little saturated, so I'm just gonna go into my edit, tonal correction, hue, saturation, luminosity, bump my saturation down on that a little bit. And press OK. Alright, and then so we're gonna have these bright lights there. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to grab some reference here of some rooftops at night. Just so I can kind of get a better idea of kind of tones that you get at night. There's a couple different ones here that'll be interesting. So I'm going to take my color picker, make sure that it's on obtain display color, which it is. That way I can just kind of pull out some of these tones here. And that's what I'm going to kind of use as my basis for these night tones. You can also kind of take one of these photos and make basically a palette to work from on just a layer. Just put a bunch of colors that you think are going to be helpful for the you putting it together. But I'm just gonna go more with this brownish tone here. One thing you gotta be careful of is make sure you're not kind of since the black tone is way darker than my darkest tone. Just make sure that you're aware of that. Just gonna grab a really soft kind of brush here. Just to build up that kind of glow that we get. Okay. You know what? I'm really not liking kind of how that's going. I'm going to delete that. And we're going to delete this. And I'm going to try that again. This time I am going to use my polygonal tool here just to get this started. Alright. Control V. Put that on the top layer again. Grab a kind of lighter tone there. Something's not working out the way you want. Never feel bad about going in and changing it up. Now again, drew that on the wrong layer. Let's copy that, paste it, and I will delete this layer. Move that one back down under that layer and deselect. Let's just do one at a time here. I'm just going to grab kind of the tone that I got from there. Deselect that. I'm going to just have to end up going over kind of the edges a little bit with the tones I want. Oh, I was wondering why that was showing up. It's because I didn't delete it from this layer here. Delete that. Right. So I might actually just kind of flat these out. And then I will go back and add the lighting for now. Just gonna treat these kind of treat them like the flat shapes with adding kind of where the shading needs to be, or the directional, where the light direction is coming from, basically. Now that's probably the opposite, but just because of the section of where the person is, and the source of light here. I'm just going to put it in kind of like that for right now. Because there should be kind of light coming up the building because of the street light. As you can see, it kind of gets darker as it comes to the top here. So I'm just gonna get rid of that layer, so that gives you a better idea of kind of what we're going for here. This needs to be more uniform. Apparently I can't do zoom in at the same time as doing that. So I just want to make sure that runs parallel to what I'm working on. There. Just grab that. Wait, and let's see, do I see? No. So what I am going to do is take that polygonal tool again. Polygonal selection tool. And I am going to just make sure that's flatter there. Okay. If I delete that, oh, doing stuff on wrong layers again, apparently. Or all right. Alright, so that's going to be the building there. Let's get some more in here. Now rooftops are pretty dark, so that's going to be tough because it's just going to be kind of moonlight that's lighting those sections. I'll just kind of throw this in here. Now I need that building probably to be a slightly different tone than this one. So So I'm just going to lower the saturation point of the building there. We're just going to work our way down. What's that? And let's delete that and do it on the right layer. Okay, I'm just kind of working down towards the vanishing point for that section. And I'm just kind of working it over and over that kind of top layer, just so that starts lightening up. And deselect. And if I take the background out there, yeah, so we got a shape of a building that's going to go that way. And there's building in the foreground here, so I'm just going to delete that. And if I turn this off, yeah. I'm just gonna go in there. Let's have some lights going on here. But I'm going to put in kind of that ledging that I had kind of there. This time is it? So we're going about an hour, but we'll go a little bit longer than an hour today. I'm just going to go that. So what I'm going to do is grab the darker tone again. Now, let's see. All right. Now I'm doing the opposite of kind of what I did in the original drawing here. I originally had that kind of the highlights that were making up these kind of sections here. I think I'm going to go with the darker tone, because you'll do a lot of negative stuff in like black and white that you wouldn't do if it wasn't black and white. What that does is it just helps all of that stuff kind of become more apparent. There's no way of going darker on dark You can't go darker than black. I'll just keep going. And turn off that. Yeah, it gets a better idea of that. And then I can put in these kind of amber or yellowish kind of light coming from windows there. This I'm not going to be as picky about because I'm going to end up blowing these lights out a little bit by kind of like we did with the sheen on the hair. So eventually what we'll do is we'll probably go in with just grab a softer brush here. We're going to probably go add some glow basically to all the lights. But so I'm just kind of getting their shape in there first. Oops. And we can lighten them up and stuff. Just kind of see what kind of pattern I had in there before. Now, of course, these lines, everything in there isn't perfect. It's fine. And you just need to give them impression. Could spend a lot of time working on that background if you wanted to, but you don't want to take away from the main focus, so you want to keep probably what's in the other spots a little bit less clear. You don't want as sharp and as hard of lines, so you want kind of use softer brushes. You don't want anything sharp and focus in those areas. Just like in photography, you kind of want your main subject of the picture to be kind of what's the sharpest in frame. So even this is going to be less sharp than the details we have in here and in the hair. Which one am I doing? I'm kind of keeping to that. I'm kind of not of what I had before there. Now the scribbliness of it, like I said, that's just going to also add a little bit of variation when I do put in the full kind of glow effect to it. Now, one thing I'll have to remember is that to kind of make those areas also more, the areas around them kind of darker. Because it's all, the light is kind of backlighting kind of the edge of everything there, so it should have some glow around the edge, but it's not going to be it's it's not going to actually light up these sections, if that makes any sense. Now, when I drew this, I did try using the, when I drew the pen and ink version, or the black and white, I guess, version, I did use the perspective tools that they have in Clip Studio, and they are good. But if you're trying to do anything more than anything kind of really complicated with it, you are gonna have come across some little issues that I did, most likely. But I did like them. I kind of, instead of using like a 3-point perspective grid, I ended up doing two different layers of grids, or perspective tool layers. There are some really great tutorials on YouTube of people using them. We're way more adept at it than I am, but also you got to realize that depending on which way the buildings are facing, or if there's a slight turn, it can look really robotic if you're just using one 3-point perspective for all this. Like, each of these buildings are going to have a slightly different perspective, just depending on if they're turned a little bit or not. Because you'll see people kind of build stuff on a grid, and it's like, well, that doesn't look real for some reason, and it's because it's too perfectly gridded out, which cities aren't really like that. Probably should be, but they're not. Well, there should be sections of floors where it's kind of, if this is an office building, there should be like rows where there's not much light entirely, because this tends to be like a big open section. But I'm going to add just a few, just to have some more variety there. And remember, as stuff gets further away, you tend to have less saturation. Something always to remember. I'm going to kind of grab whatever the lightest point of that was there. And I am going to increase my brush size a bit. Just going to get kind of the general outline of the building in here. Now if I turn that off, yeah, so I have some sort of idea of where that building starts and ends. Alright, so that gives me an idea of that too. Might actually just go in there and just start doing that for a lot of these shapes that are in here, just so I have them kind of in there. Okay. What do I have across the street here? Alright, what is this shape here? Let's just go in the brush. Bring that down to a more reasonable size here. Just gonna give a little bit more detail of what's going on in this one here. Just give it a little bit of light in there. Bring that a little bit lighter tone there. It's a bigger. Oh, why am I no longer getting? I must have pressed Alt. Change the tool color there. Alright, let's grab some of this tone too. Just give this one a little bit of variation comparatively. Okay. Let's get that grid back up there for a second. Get some thicker lines in there. Just gonna take this tool here, polygonal tool again, just selecting kind of a little bit inside of that one edge, and then I can go in there and let's just grab that, the bigger brush. And there we just get a little bit more of an indication of some light coming off there. And how did I do this? I just put a big grid on it. I'll probably do something similar. So we'll just start off by kind of grabbing that inside there. I don't like that you can't Control Z this tool though. It's very annoying that you should be able to just Control Z and alter your your progress on where you have the put down points. It would be really nice if they would change that. Instead, you have to go in and adjust them after. Not a big fan of doing that. To me, it would make more sense if it just was kind of in there already. Alright, so that looks good. I'm just going to put some of these kind of shaped lines in there. Just darkening some of those areas there. And then I'll probably go in here. I'm just going to grab kind of that, just so these kind of roof tiles, the areas have maybe a little bit more dimension to them. That might be a little too bright. Bring it down a little bit. I'm just gonna go and draw kind of some areas of highlight there, give it some more dimensionality to that. Do the same with this section. I'm gonna go a little bit lighter. So as you can see, we're kind of getting in a nice little background in there now. I'm debating on if I should take one of these buildings to kind of like close to finish or not. If that would be more beneficial or not. Alright, well, on a different layer here, I am going to add in, let's just work on some of that light right now. I'll just grab that, grab a lighter tone, just give that some glow, and I might actually try a glow dodge first on it, on one layer of it. It's going to give it the kind of that nice real glow, but not overly. That's a little intense. I'm going to dial that back down a little bit. just gonna keep what that kind of glow dodge does is it seems to kind of keep it more in check. It doesn't really overly spread out across like the super dark areas. It kind of allows you to keep kind of some of that shadow. It gives it a real nice glow effect, especially for nighttime stuff. It really, if you're doing neon signs, it works really nice to just go over it, kind of like I'm doing here with the glow dodge. There's also color dodge, very similar. Let me go to color dodge. It's more of an intense effect of the same thing. I'm going to just kind of fill in. But I find that one's a little, as you can see, it's a little bit overpowering. So in certain areas, I don't want much of that coming through at all. Like at the top of it, the glow shouldn't be as strong as, say, at the bottom and the side there, since that's getting covered. But if we're doing this as a nighttime thing, this will probably work good. Now, I am going to have to lighten up everything quite a bit more. I'm just going in there kind of lightly at the moment, and then I'll probably have to make some changes to it after. Now, I'm just going to desaturate that glow dodge a little bit. Same kind of thing, tonal correction, hue saturation. Just going to bring saturation down on that a little bit so it's not quite as intense. Bring the luminosity up on it a bit. And then on the actual layer, I'll just bring the layer back a little bit. Now I'm thinking though that kind of I'm going a little too warm. And I think that's due to this reference is not exactly the color tones I'm going for with my piece itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off that color dodge layer. I'm going to select the original layer. And I'm going to push around the colors till I get kind of more the way I want it in the hue saturation component again. So here I'm just changing the hue. I want to push it towards more of that reddish tone. Luminosity is making so much of a difference that that I'm not gonna. If I color dodge and I want to just desaturate that layer completely. No. So I'm gonna have to actually go in there and change those tones. I mean, if I do the selection, how do I do? I want to add selections. I don't know. I know in Photoshop you can just globally grab that stuff. I just don't know if that exists in Clip Studio or not. I'm sure it probably does, but misclick one thing and then it all goes crazy. Oh. Let's just grab that for now. Go to the actual correct layer. Saturation. Pull those more to, yeah, I want those kind of more of a yellow, I'm thinking. What's brighter? That didn't really work either. Well, let's just see. Oh, that's gonna do each of those. Keep that at that, and I'm gonna have to probably call it a day, and I'm gonna think about how I'm gonna incorporate more of what I want is this tone. Kind of purplish tone, but I think if I'm taking it off the lights here, it might be too much of it. So I'm just gonna have to think a little bit, because the idea originally was like it's like phosphorus lights, so you're usually getting more of an amber tone, but what I really went with was more of this purplish reddish tone, and I kind of need a little bit of that to come through, or else it's just not gonna look coherent with this piece where it's at kind of right now. Especially once I put the glow in there, it just is, it's distracting because this orange color is so much brighter than this that I think it will distract from the piece itself. So I'm gonna have to kind of think about that for next time. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this stream. And hopefully next time you can come again and learn some more, and we can bring this piece hopefully to a near finished piece. Anyways, thank you, and keep